Get out of my hospital! That was the arrogant shout from billionaire Marcus Thornwood, directed at a quiet NICU nurse who dared to enforce hospital rules against him. Marcus Thornwood thought his immense wealth gave him the right to ignore medical protocols and threaten staff, never imagining that the nurse he was trying to fire, Emma Rodriguez, held the ultimate power. Emma was merely looking after the premature babies when the billionaire challenged her authority, utterly unaware that he was speaking to the very owner of the entire hospital corporation. The night shift at St. Catherine's maternity ward was always the quietest, and that's exactly why Emma loved it. While the day shift dealt with scheduled C-sections, visiting families, and the constant buzz of activity, the night shift belonged to the babies and the nurses who cared for them. Emma Rodriguez moved silently between the isolettes in the NICU, checking monitors, adjusting temperatures, her practiced hands gentle despite 12 years of experience. She wore the same standard-issue scrubs as every other nurse, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no jewelry except for a small silver cross her grandmother had given her. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was anything other than what she appeared to be, a dedicated night nurse, probably making around $70,000 a year, living modestly, working hard. Which was exactly how Emma preferred it. "Emma, we've got an incoming!" Rachel, the charge nurse, called from the desk. "Emergency C-section. 32 weeks. Mother has preeclampsia. Baby's going to need immediate intervention." Emma nodded, already moving to prepare the warming station and gather the necessary equipment. This was what she did best, what she had trained for, what gave her life meaning. Not the money in her various bank accounts, not the property she owned, not the investments that had made her wealthy beyond most people's comprehension. Just this, helping babies survive their first, most vulnerable moments. The delivery room doors burst open, and the OB team rushed in, with the mother on a gurney, already sedated and prepped for surgery. Emma caught a glimpse of her face, young, maybe 25, terror in her eyes even through the medication. "It's going to be okay," Emma said, placing a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder before she was wheeled into the OR. "We're going to take good care of your baby." 45 minutes later, Emma was holding a tiny premature baby girl, barely 3 pounds, her skin translucent and fragile. But she was breathing on her own, which was a good sign. Emma worked with swift efficiency, running all the necessary tests, getting her stabilized, whispering encouragement to the little fighter. "You're doing great, pequeña," Emma murmured in Spanish. "Your mama is going to be so proud of you." She was so focused on the baby that she didn't notice the commotion at the NICU entrance, until Rachel appeared at her side, her face tight with stress. "Emma, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that involves Marcus Thornwood." Emma's hand stilled for just a moment. Marcus Thornwood. The name alone was enough to make most people in this hospital nervous. He was a real estate developer, one of the wealthiest men in the city, known for his aggressive business tactics and his absolute intolerance for anything less than perfection. "What does Thornwood want with the NICU?" Emma asked, going back to her work. "His daughter-in-law just delivered, premature twins, and he's demanding immediate access to see them. It's 2 a.m., visiting hours are over, and we have protocols for the NICU." "I tried to explain that," Rachel said, "but he's threatening to have me fired if I don't let him in immediately." Emma looked up, meeting Rachel's worried eyes. Rachel was a single mother of 2, couldn't afford to lose her job, and everyone knew that Marcus Thornwood was exactly the kind of man who would follow through on threats like that. "Where is he?" "Right outside the NICU entrance. Security tried to stop him, but he said he'd have them fired too." "Emma, I don't know what to do. He's demanding to see Dr. Morrison, but Dr. Morrison is in surgery with another patient. Emma finished securing the premature baby girl in her isolette, made sure all her monitors were functioning properly, then washed her hands and walked toward the entrance. Marcus Thornwood was exactly what Emma expected. Mid-60s, expensive suit even at 2 a.m., silver hair perfectly styled, and an expression of absolute entitlement. He was arguing with 2 security guards who looked deeply uncomfortable, clearly aware that this man had the power to end their employment with a single phone call. "Mr. Thornwood," Emma said calmly, approaching the group. "I'm Emma Rodriguez, one of the NICU nurses. How can I help you?" He turned to look at her, and Emma saw the instant dismissal in his eyes. She was just a nurse, just a woman in scrubs, just another obstacle between him and what he wanted. "I don't need help from a nurse," he said coldly. "I need to see my grandchildren. Now. I understand you're concerned, but we have protocols for the NICU. The babies are in a sterile environment, and we limit access to—" "I don't care about your protocols," Thornwood interrupted. "Do you know who I am?" "I do," Emma said, keeping her voice level. "You're Marcus Thornwood, and your grandchildren were born approximately 90 minutes ago. They're premature but stable, and they're receiving excellent care. I didn't ask for a status report. I demanded to see them. And I'm explaining that immediate family can visit during designated hours, which begin at 8 a.m. If you'd like to wait in the family lounge, I can update you on their condition." Thornwood's face reddened with anger. "You're going to tell me, a major donor to this hospital, that I can't see my own grandchildren? Do you have any idea how much money I've given to St. Catherine's?" "I'm aware that you've been generous," Emma said. "But monetary donations don't change medical protocols designed to protect vulnerable infants." The 2 security guards exchanged nervous glances. Rachel had retreated to the nurses' station, clearly wanting to be as far from this confrontation as possible. "What's your name again?" Thornwood asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Emma Rodriguez." "Well, Emma Rodriguez, you're fired." "Security! Escort this woman out of the hospital, immediately." Emma felt a familiar frustration rising. This wasn't the first time a wealthy, entitled person had tried to throw their weight around in her ward. But the audacity of trying to fire a nurse over basic safety protocols was something else. "Mr. Thornwood, you don't have the authority to fire hospital staff." "Don't I?" He pulled out his phone. "Let me call the hospital administrator right now. We'll see who has what authority." "Go ahead," Emma said calmly. "But I should inform you that the hospital administrator is probably asleep, since it's 2 a.m., and even if you reach him, the answer will be the same. NICU protocols exist for a reason." "I've had enough of this," Thornwood snarled. He turned to the security guards. "If you want to keep your jobs, you'll remove this insubordinate nurse from my sight immediately." "Sir," one of the security guards said uncomfortably, "we can't forcibly remove a nurse who's just doing her job." "Then you're fired too." Thornwood's voice rose to a shout. "All of you, everyone in this godforsaken ward is fired. Get out of my hospital." "Get out of my hospital!" The words echoed through the NICU hallway. Several nurses poked their heads out of patient rooms, alarmed by the shouting. Rachel looked like she was about to cry. The security guard stood frozen, unsure what to do. Emma took a deep breath, looked at Marcus Thornwood, and made a decision she had been avoiding for 12 years. "Your hospital?" she said quietly. "Yes, my hospital. I've donated millions to this place. I fund entire wings. I'm on the board of directors. For all intents and purposes, this hospital operates because I allow it to." I see, Emma said. And you believe that gives you the right to ignore medical protocols, threaten staff, and demand special treatment? It gives me the right to expect basic respect and accommodation. Mr. Thornwood, Emma said, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel underneath. You're under several misconceptions. Let me correct them. First, your donations, while appreciated, do not give you authority over hospital operations or medical decisions. Second, you cannot fire me or anyone else here, because you're not our employer. And third, and most importantly, this is not your hospital. I just explained. It's my hospital, Emma said. The hallway went completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of medical equipment seemed to fade as everyone processed what Emma had just said. Thornwood stared at her. What did you just say? I said this is my hospital. I own it. The entire building, the land it sits on, and the corporation that operates it, has for 12 years. That's ridiculous, Thornwood said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. You're a nurse. I am a nurse, Emma agreed, and I'm also the majority shareholder and owner of St. Catherine's Healthcare Corporation. I believe you're familiar with the anonymous donor who funded the expansion of the NICU 5 years ago. That was me. The new equipment in labor and delivery, also me. The staff's salary increases last year that prevented a nursing shortage. Me again. Rachel's mouth had fallen open. The security guards looked stunned, and Marcus Thornwood had gone pale. I don't believe you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Emma pulled out her phone, made a call, and waited. It rang 3 times before a sleepy voice answered. Hello? James, it's Emma. I'm sorry to wake you, but I need you to come to St. Catherine's. NICU entrance. We have a situation that requires legal clarification. Emma, it's 2 a.m. I know what time it is. How long will it take you to get here? A pause. 20 minutes. Should I bring the documentation? Yes, all of it. Emma hung up and looked at Thornwood. That was James Whitmore, my attorney and the administrator of my various holdings. He'll be here shortly with documentation proving ownership. In the meantime, Mr. Thornwood, I'm going to offer you a choice. A choice? You can wait politely in the family lounge, where I will personally update you on your grandchildren's condition every hour. Or you can leave the hospital entirely. What you cannot do is continue to threaten my staff, disrupt my ward, or assume that wealth gives you rights that other people don't have. This is absurd, Thornwood said, but he was already backing down, the bombast deflating out of him. If you really own this hospital, why are you working as a nurse? Because that's what I went to school for. That's what I trained to do. That's what I'm good at, and what I love. The money I inherited doesn't change who I am or what I value. Inherited? Emma hesitated, then decided he deserved at least a partial explanation. 12 years ago, my grandmother died. She was Maria Rodriguez, though you might know her by her maiden name. Maria Hernandez. She cleaned houses for wealthy families for 40 years, invested every spare penny, bought property when it was cheap, and built a real estate empire that most people never knew existed. When she died, she left everything to me on one condition, that I use the money to help people, particularly mothers and babies. Emma gestured to the NICU around them. So I bought this hospital, which was on the verge of closing due to financial mismanagement. I kept it running, improved the facilities, paid the staff well, and continued working as a nurse because that's who I am. Not an heiress, not a businesswoman, a nurse who happens to have resources to make her workplace better. Thornwood was staring at her like she was speaking a foreign language. The concept of someone with wealth choosing to work, choosing to remain anonymous, choosing service over status, was clearly beyond his comprehension. "You're serious," he said finally. "You really own this place." "I really do. And now that we've established that, let's talk about your grandchildren." Emma led him to a small consultation room, gestured for him to sit, and pulled up the twins' charts on the computer. Baby A is a boy, 3 pounds 7 ounces. Baby B is a girl, 3 pounds 2 ounces. Both are breathing independently, which is excellent for 32 weeks. They'll need to stay in the NICU for several weeks to gain weight and develop fully, but their prognosis is very good. Thornwood's eyes were fixed on the monitor showing the tiny infants. Emma saw his expression change, the anger and entitlement melting away to reveal something more vulnerable. Fear. "Are they going to be okay?" he asked, and for the first time he sounded like a grandfather instead of a businessman. "They have an excellent chance," Emma said gently. "But they need rest, quiet, and a sterile environment. That's why we have strict visiting protocols. It's not about punishing anyone or asserting authority. It's about protecting babies who can't protect themselves. Thornwood's voice cracked. "I just wanted to see them, to make sure they were real." "I understand," Emma said. "And you will see them. In 6 hours, when visiting hours begin, I'll personally escort you into the NICU. You can hold them, talk to them, be their grandfather. But right now, what they need most is medical care, not visitors." Thornwood nodded slowly. "I apologize for the threats, for the shouting. I was scared, and I acted like a bully." "Apology accepted," Emma said. "But not to me. To Rachel, the charge nurse you threatened to fire, and to the security guards, and to any other staff members you intimidated." "I'll do that," Thornwood said. He looked at Emma with something that might have been respect. "Why didn't you tell me who you were immediately? Why did you let me make a fool of myself?" "Because your behavior shouldn't have been acceptable, regardless of who I am," Emma said. "Whether I'm the owner or just a nurse, the protocols exist for a reason. Medical decisions should be based on what's best for patients, not on who has the most money or power." "That's a very idealistic view." "It's the correct view," Emma said firmly. "And it's how my hospital operates. If that's going to be a problem for you, Mr. Thornwood, then perhaps you should consider having your grandchildren transferred to another facility." She said it without hostility, just a simple statement of fact, and she saw it land on Thornwood like a bucket of cold water. "No," he said quickly. "No, I want them here. You clearly run a good operation. I'm used to getting my way." "I noticed," Emma said dryly. 20 minutes later, James Whitmore arrived, carrying a briefcase and looking rumpled but professional. He was in his 40s, Emma's attorney for a decade, and one of the few people who knew her full story. "Emma," he greeted her, then nodded to Thornwood. "Mr. Thornwood. James Whitmore, legal counsel for the Rodriguez Holdings." He opened his briefcase and pulled out several documents. "Certificate of Ownership for St. Catherine's Healthcare Corporation, showing Emma Rodriguez as majority shareholder with controlling interest. Deed for the property at this address. And if you need further confirmation, I can provide tax documents, board meeting minutes, and 12 years of financial records showing continuous ownership and operation." Thornwood looked at the documents, his face a mixture of emotions Emma couldn't quite read. "I believe you," he said finally. "I don't understand you, but I believe you." "Understanding isn't necessary," Emma said. "Respecting the rules is." After Thornwood left for the family lounge, Rachel approached Emma with wide eyes. "Emma, is it true? You own the hospital?" "Yes." "For 12 years you've been working night shifts, cleaning up bodily fluids, taking orders from supervisors, dealing with difficult patients. And the whole time you owned the place?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell us?" Emma looked at her colleague, this woman who had become a friend over years of working together, and told her the truth. "Because if people knew I was wealthy, they would treat me differently. They would see the money instead of the nurse. They would wonder if every decision I made was about power rather than patient care. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be judged on my work, my skills, my dedication, not my bank account. But you could have been supervising or managing or doing anything other than night shifts in the NICU." "I could have," Emma agreed. "But this is what I love. This is what I trained for. Why would I give up work I love just because I don't need the money?" Rachel shook her head in wonder. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met." "I'm just a nurse who happens to be rich," Emma said. "The nurse part is more important to me than the rich part." Over the next few days, word spread through the hospital about Emma's true identity. Some staff members treated her differently, with new deference or awkwardness. Others, like Rachel, continued treating her exactly as they always had. Emma appreciated the latter group much more than the former. Marcus Thornwood became a regular presence in the NICU, visiting his grandchildren during appropriate hours, following all protocols, and treating the staff with noticeably more respect. He even apologized publicly to Rachel and the security guards, though Emma suspected that was more about saving face than genuine remorse. But on the twins' 7th day in the NICU, Thornwood asked to speak with Emma privately. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you said, about the hospital being run on what's best for patients, not who has the most money. And I have a proposal." "I'm listening," Emma said cautiously. "I've been donating to St. Catherine's for 15 years, always with strings attached. I funded wings in exchange for naming rights. I provided equipment in exchange for seats on the board. I used my donations as leverage to get what I wanted. That's fairly common among major donors," Emma observed. "It's also wrong," Thornwood said. "At least it's wrong when it comes to healthcare. I've been watching how you and your staff operate. The care my grandchildren are receiving, the attention, the expertise. It's not because I'm wealthy. It's because you're good at what you do, and I want to support that the right way." He pulled out a check and handed it to Emma. She looked at it and felt her eyebrows rise. $5 million. "Mr. Thornwood, no strings attached," he interrupted. "Use it however you think best. Buy equipment, hire more staff, expand services, whatever this hospital needs. I don't want naming rights or board seats or special treatment. I just want to support what you're doing here." Emma looked at the check, then at Thornwood. "What changed your mind?" "My granddaughter stopped breathing yesterday," Thornwood said quietly. "Just for a few seconds. Some kind of apnea episode. I was visiting when it happened, and I watched you and Rachel spring into action. You saved her life in less than 30 seconds, so smoothly that I barely had time to panic." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "And afterward, when I tried to thank you, you said it was just your job, like saving my granddaughter's life was routine. That's when I realized that all my money, all my power, all my influence, it doesn't mean anything compared to the skill and dedication of people like you. People who do this work because they care, not because they need the money. Thank you." Emma said, genuinely moved. "I'll make sure this donation makes a real difference." "I know you will," Thornwood said. "That's why I'm giving it to you." 6 weeks later, the Thornwood twins were discharged from the NICU, healthy and thriving. On their last day, Marcus Thornwood came to say goodbye to the staff who had cared for them. "I want to thank you all," he said to the assembled nurses. "Not just for keeping my grandchildren alive, but for teaching me some humility. Particularly you, Emma." Emma smiled. "I'm glad we could help. Both with the babies and the humility." "I've been telling people about you," Thornwood continued. "About the nurse who owns a hospital but still works night shifts. Do you know what most people say? That I'm crazy? That you're inspiring," Thornwood corrected. "That you represent what healthcare should be, focused on patients, not profits. Run by people who understand the work, not just the business." "It's just what feels right to me," Emma said. "It is right," Thornwood said. "And I want to help you expand it." "Expand it?" "I know you've been considering opening a second maternity hospital on the south side of the city, in an area that doesn't have adequate services. I want to help fund it, as an investor, not a donor. I'll provide capital, you provide expertise and management. No strings attached, no special treatment, just a partnership between someone who has money and someone who knows how to use it properly." Emma studied him, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agendas, but saw only sincerity. "I'll consider it," she said. "But there are conditions." "Such as?" "The new hospital operates by the same principles as this one. Quality care for everyone, regardless of ability to pay. Staff treated well and paid fairly. Medical decisions made by medical professionals, not business people. And most importantly, I remain anonymous as the owner. The public face is the hospital and its mission, not my name or my wealth." "Agreed," Thornwood said without hesitation. "Though I have to ask, why is the anonymity so important to you?" Emma thought about her grandmother, Maria Rodriguez, who had cleaned houses for 40 years while quietly building a fortune. Who had never sought recognition or status, just the satisfaction of work well done and resources well managed. "Because the work is what matters," Emma said. "Not who does it or how much money they have. When patients come to my hospital, I want them to trust the care they receive, not wonder if their treatment is based on their insurance status or their ability to pay. When my staff comes to work, I want them to focus on their patients, not on office politics or currying favor with the owner. Anonymity allows all of that. You're a very unusual person, Emma Rodriguez." "I'm just a nurse," Emma said with a smile. "Everything else is incidental." 5 years after the Thornwood incident, St. Catherine's Healthcare had expanded to 3 hospitals across the city, all operating on the same principles Emma had established. She still worked night shifts in the NICU of the original location, still wore the same standard scrubs, still introduced herself as simply Emma to new patients and families. But word had gotten out, despite her best efforts at anonymity. Stories circulated about the secret owner, the nurse who was actually wealthy, the woman who chose bedside care over boardroom meetings. Some people sought her out, wanting to thank her or pitch ideas or simply meet the person behind the myth. Emma handled it with the same quiet competence she brought to everything else. She listened politely, redirected attention to the hospital and its staff, and then went back to work caring for premature babies who didn't care who owned the hospital, just that someone was there to keep them alive. One night, a young mother arrived in active labor, clearly terrified and alone. Emma recognized the signs immediately. poor, probably undocumented, certainly without insurance. The kind of patient who might be turned away at other hospitals, or at least made to feel unwelcome. "Hi, I'm Emma," she said gently, taking the young woman's hand. "What's your name?" "Sophia," the woman whispered. "I don't have insurance, I don't have money. But my baby is coming and I didn't know where else to go." "You came to the right place," Emma assured her. "We're going to take excellent care of you and your baby. Don't worry about the money. We have programs for that. Right now, let's just focus on bringing this baby safely into the world." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You'll help me even though I can't pay?" "Of course," Emma said. "Healthcare isn't something you have to earn. It's something everyone deserves. Now let's get you to a delivery room." 5 hours later, Emma held Sophia's healthy baby boy, wrapped him in a soft blanket, and placed him in his mother's arms. "He's perfect," Sophia breathed. "He is," Emma agreed. "What are you going to name him?" "Daniel," Sophia said. "After my father." Emma smiled, thinking about her own grandmother, about the legacy of strength and service that had brought her to this moment. "Daniel is a beautiful name," she said. "Welcome to the world, Daniel." As she left Sophia's room to file paperwork, Emma passed Marcus Thornwood in the hallway. He was there visiting another family member, but he stopped when he saw her. "Emma, I wanted you to know. The Southside Hospital just delivered its 5,000th baby. All healthy outcomes, all families provided with excellent care regardless of ability to pay. What you're doing, the model you created, it's changing how people think about healthcare." "It's not about changing anything," Emma said. "It's just about doing what's right." "Which is exactly why it's so powerful," Thornwood said. "You're proof that you can provide excellent health care, treat staff well, and still run a sustainable operation. You're living proof that profit doesn't have to come at the expense of compassion." Emma shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I'm just a nurse who happens to have resources." "No," Thornwood said firmly. "You're a nurse who chose to use her resources to change the world. Don't diminish that." After he left, Emma stood for a moment in the quiet hospital hallway. She could hear the sounds of babies crying, mothers laughing, nurses chatting at the station. The sounds of life, of hope, of people caring for each other. This was what her grandmother had worked for. This was what 40 years of cleaning houses had built. This was what wealth was for, not status or power or control, but the ability to help people who needed it. Emma smiled, adjusted her scrubs, and went back to work, because she was a nurse, and that was all she ever wanted to be. 10 years after the Thornwood incident, Emma was featured in a healthcare policy magazine, though she had refused to be photographed or provide detailed personal information. The article was titled, "The Anonymous Revolution: How One Nurse is Transforming Urban Healthcare." She read it during her break, sitting in the same break room where she'd eaten lunch for over 2 decades. Emma Rodriguez, known to most only as Emma from Night Shift, has quietly built a healthcare empire that operates on principles most people think are impossible: universal access, excellent care, fair wages, and financial sustainability. By remaining anonymous and continuing to work as a bedside nurse, Rodriguez has proven that healthcare reform doesn't require government mandates or corporate restructuring. It just requires people in power who actually care about the work more than the status. Rachel sat down next to her, reading over her shoulder. "They got it right," Rachel said. "You do care more about the work than the status." "The work is what matters," Emma said simply. "Do you ever regret it?" Rachel asked. keeping your identity secret, working these night shifts when you could be on a beach somewhere, never getting public recognition for what you've built. Emma thought about it, really thought about it. No, she finally said. Because if I stopped working as a nurse, if I became just a wealthy owner making decisions from a boardroom, I'd lose touch with what actually matters. I'd forget what it's like to hold a premature baby at 3 a.m., wondering if they'll make it through the night. I'd forget what it's like to comfort a scared mother who has no insurance and no support. I'd forget why I started doing this in the first place. And why did you start doing this? Emma smiled, thinking back to her grandmother's words, spoken on her deathbed. My grandmother told me, Maria, I cleaned houses so you could build something better. But never forget that cleaning houses was good, honest work. Whatever you build it with the same honesty. So that's what I've done. Built something better, but never forgotten that the work itself, the actual care of actual people, is what matters. Rachel nodded, tears in her eyes. Your grandmother would be proud. I hope so, Emma said. Because everything I've done, I did to honor her. To take what she built and use it to help people, just like she would have wanted. 20 years after the Thornwood incident, Emma was still working night shifts in the NICU of the original St. Catherine's Hospital. She was in her 50s now, with gray streaking through her dark hair. But her hands were as skilled as ever, and her dedication undiminished. The St. Catherine's Healthcare Corporation now operated 12 hospitals across 3 states, all following the same model Emma had established. Excellent care for everyone, staff treated with respect and paid fairly, medical decisions made by medical professionals. It was a model that other healthcare systems were starting to emulate, proving that it was possible to provide quality care without sacrificing financial sustainability. But for Emma, the most important measure of success wasn't the number of hospitals, or the financial statements or the industry recognition. It was moments like this, a mother holding her premature baby for the first time, crying with joy and relief, a father watching his twins breathe, without assistance, after weeks of ventilator support. A young immigrant woman receiving the same care as a billionaire's wife, because in Emma's hospitals, everyone mattered equally. These were the moments that mattered. These were the reasons Emma still worked night shifts, still wore standard scrubs, still introduced herself as simply Emma to families who would never know she owned the building they were standing in. One night, near the end of her shift, Emma sat in the quiet NICU watching the sunrise through the windows. She thought about Marcus Thornwood, about how he had shouted, "Get out of my hospital." 20 years ago, not knowing he was speaking to the actual owner. She smiled at the memory. Not because his humiliation had been satisfying, though she admitted it had been a bit, but because that moment had changed him, had taught him that wealth and power meant nothing compared to skill and dedication, had shown him that the people he thought he could dismiss were actually the ones who mattered most. And in changing him, in partnering with him on the healthcare expansion, Emma had expanded her ability to help people. Sometimes the best way to change a system wasn't to tear it down, but to show people there was a better way. Emma's phone buzzed, a text from James Whitmore. Board meeting next week. They want to offer you CEO position officially. Again. She typed back, tell them the same thing I tell them every year. I'm a nurse. That's not going to change. James responded with a laughing emoji and, I'll tell them. Though I think they already knew what you'd say. Emma smiled, pocketed her phone, and did one final check on all her patients before the day shift arrived. Each baby was stable, each monitor showing healthy numbers, each tiny life being carefully protected by the staff Emma had hired, In the hospital Emma had built, with the resources Emma had inherited from a grandmother who cleaned houses and dreamed of something better. This was what wealth was for, not yachts or mansions or status symbols, but this, helping people who needed it, supporting work that mattered, building systems that treated everyone with dignity, regardless of their ability to pay. Emma Rodriguez was a nurse. That's all she had ever wanted to be. And if she happened to also be the owner of a healthcare corporation that was changing the industry, well, that was just incidental. The work was what mattered. The work was always what mattered. And as long as there were premature babies who needed care, and mothers who needed support, Emma would be there, in her standard scrubs, on the night shift, doing the job she loved, because she was a nurse. And that was enough. The end.